Welcome to another stocked and loaded episode of the Sports Card Nation podcast, the show that brings you all the important hobby news, discussions, debates, opinions, info, and interviews with key hobby and sports dignitaries. Also, if you're good, you know we are going to give away something. Now, here's the guy that wanted the cards more than the gum. John Newman.
What is up, everybody? Episode 163 of the Sports Card Nation podcast. Got a great show on tap for you, at least I believe that. Ryan Cracknell from Beckett Media is today's guest. We're going to talk about what he does for Beckett, why he loves his job, as he should, and the great content he creates. And many of you know that already, but maybe you don't. He'll fill in those blanks. We're going to talk about current events. We're going to talk about baseball back to Montreal, what he collects. Again, some hobby current events. And he was very candid. He doesn't, he's someone who's passionate, cares about the hobby, and doesn't mind telling you, how he feels. And that's always refreshing for anybody, in this politically correct world. Not that he said anything incorrect, but sometimes people don't really say what they really feel. Never been a problem for me, but for certain other pro folks, it might be, but not for Ryan. And glad he finally came on. We got to, talk even off the air. He's a really great guy, and the hobby's a better place with him in it. Speaking of hobby and better places, not a good start for 2022 with some bad, news stories coming out, whether it be breakers doing not some ethical things. We had another submitter say he can't hold his end up of the bargain for grading, and the stories continue trickling out, robberies, burglaries, and but we do have to report that stuff, which we'll do on our hobby quick hit shows, which comes out on Monday. But for every one of those bad stories, and I know no one really likes those bad stories, but for every one of those, there's 100 good ones, and for every bad hobby person, there's 1,000 great hobby members of the community. So we can't lose sight of that. Don't let some of these things get you down or ruin the hobby for you. I know it might bothers me, but we got to just keep going and enjoy the hobby. I hear a lot of people talking about, prices being down and prices lowering. I myself, and believe me, I'm on the show circuit a little bit again, and I see it. And but look on the bright side of that too, right? As a buyer, it's costing you less money, right, to buy cards, right? Everything else in the world's going up. So it's more money to put gas in your car. Food at your supermarket is up, I think, something between like 10 and 30%, depending on the food item. Everything else is going up, or refunds are going down. No more stimulus package. So look on the bright side of things with the hobby reset, as Ty Wilson coined it, which I like that term. I might start using it more. But, the market's it's a great opportunity to buy. And I think those prices, some people might not like what I'm about to say, but I think those prices continue to come down as things in the real macroeconomics aren't doing so well. So it's a good opportunity if you have that discretionary income to add a lot more inventory than you previously could, a year ago, let's say, or a couple years ago. So take advantage of that if you can. It's a great opportunity. With that being said, let's get this show started.
Howdy, y'all. This is Brad Bethune, your Texas card dude. Thanks for listening to my friend and yours, Mr. John Newman. Hello, Newman. And remember, the hobby is the people. Thanks very much. Support your local LCSs. Support your local hobby shops. Have a great one.
Greg Morris Cards wants to buy your cards. A long trusted name in the sports card business, Greg has been buying sports card collections for over a decade now. Any sport, baseball, basketball, football, or hockey, in any era, vintage or modern, will do. Just no junk wax error sets, please. To learn more and to sell Greg Morris your cards, go to www.gregmorriscards.com. Fill out the consignment sale request form and someone will get back to you on how to get cash for your cards. Also, if you're a dealer looking to sell your collection, Greg Morris wants to talk. Plenty of dealers use Greg Morris' massive eBay platform as a way to consign their cards. Take advantage of Greg's experience in the hobby to get more bang for your buck.
Sports Card Nation, it's now time to chop it up with our featured guest on the one-of-one card shop guest line. Let's go!
Real happy to be joined by my next guest here on the Sports Card Nation podcast. He's the hobby editor at Beckett Media. And Ryan Cracknell, you almost need no introduction. Most people do know you, but wanted to give you a proper one. You're a little younger than me, but you've been involved in the hobby for about as long as I have, which is a long time. So I've been itching to get you on, Ryan, and here you are. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So I know a good portion of what you do at Beckett. It's not pricing everybody, by the way, just to get that out there. But for those that may not know or may not know everything, and I'm sure I don't know everything, kind of describe, you've been there. I think you're working on almost 7 years now, kind of what you do.
Yeah, more or less. It's basically I'm guided by a philosophy. And my philosophy, overriding philosophy, is that an educated collector is a better collector. The more you know about the stuff that's out there, the happier you're going to be with your collection, no matter what that is, however you collect, whatever. So that kind of guides me every day. So what I do, my focus is on the website, the Beckett News portion of the website. So I'll do things like write up a preview. If a checklist comes out, I format the checklist so that it's usable, break it down into teams as well if possible. Sometimes if there's news things that come along that fit into that as well. That's kind of the gist of what I do. Just building things to help resources to help collectors build their collections.
Yeah. And I know you do a lot of the checklists. That's a huge thing for folks that want to, see what's in a product, obviously, as early as they can. I mean, be honest, how often do you get people message you or contact your emails and try to get that stuff either early or ask you maybe ahead of time, like, hey, do you know this now? Can you give me the 411 on it?
Every day? Just about. It honestly, it depends on what the product is. If there's something hot, like right now, Mosaic football is a big one, and the checklist didn't come out till the day that the set came out, and so there was no there was none of that buildup of I'm going to be chasing this guy, even though we all know what rookies are going to be in a football product, or really any product. Still, it's making everything officially official and just being able to see it. So that one was tricky. But like all the time I'll get, messages on Twitter or in my email, like, where's this checklist? And it's like, honestly, with checklists, I have zero control. Everyone gets them all at the same time. With Panini, they put them on their website. Everyone gets them at the same time. Top sends them out to a whole bunch of people all at once. Upper Deck does the same thing, and there's no secret to when I get it. It's when it shows up in my email or I see it posted on Panini's website. That's the secret sauce behind it. So,
yeah, and that's the thing. You don't have control over that. The companies release that when they release that, so someone can send you 10 emails. There's nothing you can do about it. You get it when you get it. And in pandemic, I don't have to tell this to you, but in pandemic times, some of these checklists aren't coming out in the same form or fashion as we've sort of been used to before. Heck, some of the products, point blank, aren't coming out themselves, are either not coming out on time or canceled altogether. So it's just, all everything's sort of upside down. It's, I wish people, for your sake, people would kind of know that it's out of your control and maybe not bombard you or your email inbox with that stuff. But that is what it is. That's the nature of the beast, as they say. You're based in Canada. How often, either as part of your job for Beckett or just in general, how often do you get to the States?
Well, it's been over 2 years now since I last did. The pandemic has thrown a lot of things out. I really haven't done much traveling probably in the last 4 years, because even the year or two before that, we were dealing with some family health things, I'll say. And I didn't want to leave anywhere from home for a good while there. Once things settle down, hopefully I'll be able to get to the National this year. I think the last one that I was at, I've honestly lost track. I think it might have been 2018 was the last time I was at one. So it's been a while. Sometimes there are meetings in Dallas, but not a lot. I've been down there a few times. It's always fun. And, when you work from home, it's just nice to see the faces that you email with. Even if it's just a hello or going out for lunch or sitting in a meeting together, it's nice to see them, and they're all good people. That's, one of the nice things about working for Beckett is everyone that I'm surrounded by, they're good people. So.
Yeah, that's always a good thing. A lot of people probably can't say the same thing. What's kind of a traditional question? What's your favorite thing about at your time at Beckett? You might have even just said it, but I'll ask you.
Well, part of it, I guess the cool factor would be Beckett was something that I grew up with. As a kid, when I first started collecting, it was every month you'd buy the Beckett. So being a part of that now, even though it's very different and I get it and everything else, and, just the challenge of print media in general is different. But I feel like I'm making a different kind of mark, and my hope is that I'm holding up the standard that Dr. Beckett and his teams established back then, as I can with my skills, today's hobby, all that jazz. And, really the other part of it is I've converted something that I did as a hobby into my job. Like, that's my career. Before I got into the hobby full time, I was a teacher, and I wanted to be home more with my kids. That was something that I realized as a kid growing up myself, was just having a parent around for my kids, because my parents were too busy working. And so teaching became too much. Technically, I tell myself that I'm on a break from teaching, but it's been a lot of years now. So who knows what the future holds, but it's a good place and it's a good situation as my family grew up. So doing something that's fun, like I'm around cards all day, which isn't always glamorous. It often isn't glamorous, but it's still pretty darn cool. And to be able to make that my career right now is definitely fun.
Yeah, no doubt. I want to ask you the worst thing. I think you touch on a little bit with people, hey, where's the checklist? What's the delay? Is this guy going to be in it or not? That sort of stuff, which I'm sure you're used to it by now, but it is what it is, right? But collect, like, your hobby background. I know I've heard you talk about it before. One of the first sets that really garnered your attention was the ET cards from back in the day. I mean, that was just a huge movie. One of the first early movies I seen in the theater. I bought the cards too, and that kind of got the ball rolling for you as a young man or kid, truthfully. But since then, that was around 83. So we're talking, 38 years, 39 years ago. What's been generally your interest, through the years?
Oh, it's evolving and shrinking at the same time. My biggest passions are baseball, number one, and non-sport entertainment, 1B. I also like basketball quite a lot,
Yeah.
especially from my high school time, late '90s, and anything that channels that vibe now. I love building sets. That was kind of where I got started. There's the joy of organizing stacks of cards and putting them in order. I can't explain it, but collectors get it, and that's a source of relaxation for me still to this day. That and putting stickers in a sticker book, like one of the Panini sticker albums.
Yeah.
That was another gateway collectible thing for me as well when I was younger. I collect Montreal Expos, more or less just the team sets though, nothing too fancy. And I have a really, really big John Jaha collection as far as John Jaha can go. I have basically every card of his that's ever been released.
Wow.
That isn't a one-of-a-kind one, except for really rare checklist for marbles that has like 20 other guys, including Frank Thomas and Ken Griffey Jr., so I'll never get it because I have to compete with the Griffey guys, and I can't do that.
Going to take a quick commercial break, but we'll be right back after that.
The Sports Card Shop is your small-town local card shop with a global reach. Located in New Buffalo, Michigan, the shop is one of the most accessible in the Midwest. In addition to being an authorized Panini direct dealer, the Sports Card Shop carries all major trading card brands, including Topps, Upper Deck, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and more. With all that new wax, 500,000 singles, and showcases full of graded cards, you're sure to find something great for your collection, whether you're just starting out or a seasoned collector. The Sports Card Shop is your one-stop shop. So call us, come see us, or visit us on the web and social media. Our phone number is 269-469-0140. Website is thesportscardshop@moco.com. The Sports Card Shop is part of the Moco Retail Group, connecting sports, the hobby, and people around the world.
We are back with Ryan Cracknell. Now, I've heard you talk about this before. You're like, hockey's not really big in your wheelhouse, which, being in Canada, how come? Why would you say that?
It never... probably the big thing is I played baseball. 4-year-olds can skate laps around me to this day. Like I was never comfortable on the ice. I really like watching hockey live, but I'd never really gotten into watching it on TV or even following it super closely. When I was really little, that was the Gretzky era. So everyone on the playground, we would talk about the Oilers. But it's just kind of one of those things that just it didn't speak to me, I guess is what it is. And I think I also realized kind of early on that having a niche of being a Canadian focused on baseball is kind of good weird. Like it's odd in the sense that people don't expect it, but completely harmless at the same time. So maybe that was my teenage rebellion or something like that. I don't know. But it just hockey doesn't speak to me. And now as a parent, sports where you injure your brain freak me out. And so hockey is one of those. And it's just kind of gone by that and boxing.
Yeah.
Love boxing movies, but I have a hard time watching it now. So
I mean it's called a sweet science, but it's also it can be barbaric. We've had I don't need to tell you this, people died in the ring. Hopefully it doesn't ever happen again, but it's happened multiple times. And I kind of grew up, I'm a New York City kid, and so I kind of grew up sort of, my grandfather was an amateur boxer, my dad was an amateur boxer, and I was taught how to box just more or less to defend myself if need be. And so it's sort of ingrained, maybe because of where I'm from as well. But I hear what you're saying. I think you're exactly right. It's can be a brutal sport when you can hardly recognize some boxers' faces after the fight has concluded, and then you hear some of them talk later in life, even after their boxing career's over, and it's hard to understand what they're saying. And I'm not saying that in a pick on them sort of way, but just that's kind of the culmination of taking all those blows, that it's affected them medically. And it's kind of sad to see that their career, while it made them probably in most cases that fighter a good living, on the other side of it, that's the quality of life isn't the same as maybe me or you or someone in a less brutal profession. So I fully get that. You mentioned the collecting the Montreal Expos. I was being here in the Syracuse, New York area now, and even New York City. I did get to a couple Expo games back in the day. And what percentage of all the Expo cards would you say, do you know, like how close you are to having the run?
I haven't done the math. As far as base set go, like base team sets, regular ones, I'm pretty sure I have all the tops, like the main tops.
Yeah.
Honoris Upper Deck, all the main ones. It's more some of the early like 60s O-Pee-Chee, ironically enough, being Canadian.
Yeah.
But probably just as much the stingy side in me of not wanting to pay for the French when I already have the English. But those are a challenge. And then on the flip side, it's towards the end of their run with all the short prints of the early 2000s. Those are my biggest gaps. I've started adding things like early refractors from Topps Finest and Pinnacle Museum Collection parallels. So I'm starting to branch out a little bit more, but not too, just enough to keep me busy and everything else.
Yeah.
So it's close. I will say that if you're looking at a base run of Expos, it is really close. Percentage wise, no idea. I don't think I'll ever figure it out. I'd rather be spending my time browsing online, looking at stuff than doing math.
Yeah.
Doing enough during the day. So.
Like Bo Thompson, you don't have the Expos meter.
Yeah. It's all no, and I'll never. I need to downsize sooner rather than later. Like one of my collecting goals for the year is to have 10,000 less cards than when I started the year with, which it sounds like a lot, but I don't think it is, because there's a lot that are just, they've been sitting in boxes for decades that I haven't even thought about. So need to go find them a good home.
Yeah. Now, how do you display the Expo cards do you have? Are they in boxes? Are they in binders?
Mostly binders. A few years ago, I started moving a lot of things into binders because I just found that I looked at them more. If they're in a box, they're all piled up, for one, and then two, there's always the concern that I'll drop them or something like that. So I'm like, you know what? I really enjoy going through the Expos cards, so let's start putting them in binders. As I finish the team set, I'll put them in a binder, and then all my binders are organized by like brand and everything else, so that I can find them pretty easily as well. So
yeah, that's cool. I was going to ask you, how organized are they? You got them by year, and so do you ever find yourself like you think you don't have one, and you pick it up and they're like, oh, I did have this thing.
Oh, actually, it's more the opposite for me, where I think I'm done something, and then you're like, oh, I'm missing one. But it does go both ways. It's more when I'm building like a larger set, like a top set that has 500, 700 cards, and all of a sudden I realize I only have 499 after waiting years to finish it. I very much am very patient in how I build a lot of my sets. Like, it's normal for me to finish something now from like 1996. I'm in no rush.
Yeah. Sometimes that's the best way to be. It's when you sort of put that pressure on yourself that, it becomes difficult, and maybe even you hear people overpaying or something like that. With the kind of I get it when I get it, I think you set yourself up for better success. Is there one Expos player like you're more fond of? Like, do you have a favorite guy, or is it just everyone that played for the organization?
It's more a team thing. It kind of got into, I think when I was starting that part of my collection, I was doing some sports history classes at university, and it just kind of seemed like a museum sort of thing where I didn't need things on my walls or anything like that. But I could have a nice history of that franchise. Plus, honestly, I knew at the time that they weren't going to be in Montreal forever. And I'm a completist. I like finality in my collecting so that I can see, I know what the goal is. And one of the things that I'm not necessarily not looking forward to, but if they come back, I'm going to have to decide, am I going to be collecting new Expos or X-rays or whatever they are if they come back? Or do I just, go Expos 1.0 and leave it at that? Which I don't know. I'll say one thing now, but probably change my mind 15 times. I'll wait for that to happen.
Yeah, it's funny. I was about to ask you that, Ryan. Is like there's been talk of bringing baseball back to Montreal. You're right there. Like, what do you think we're going to see that at some point? I'm not saying, at some point.
I think they're in the running. I'm on the West Coast. It's going to be hard for me to make it to a game if they do come back. Like, Toronto's way closer than Montreal is. But I could see, I actually like Vancouver as a city for a baseball team. On the West Coast, we're super passionate about baseball.
They have a minor league, don't they? Don't you have? There is or at least there was.
The Canadians, I think. I'm not 100% sure what they are now. They might be AA when they did all the rearranging last year. But we've had some smaller leagues even below, the major league, minor league systems. And the West Coast teams were typically the high attendance, all things considered. Not necessarily huge, but we like our baseball on the West Coast.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you think you'll see baseball back in Montreal? And if it does come back, I mean, they're going to be the Expos again, or you think they'll try to brand them as a whole new organization?
I think it depends on the situation. If it's the Tampa thing that they've been talking about, where them and Tampa will split time, I don't see how you could have two different team names. Like, maybe they will, because that makes them more money. But identity wise, I think that's chaotic and not cool. But if they get a full franchise, I don't see why they wouldn't go with the Expos unless there's some sort of copyright ownership of the name sort of thing, like with the Nationals in Washington. But it doesn't. The Expos are loved in Montreal for people who love baseball, and there's the history. So personally, I think it'd be silly to change it unless there's a reason to, beyond control.
I have heard that like half the games in Montreal, the other half in Tampa Bay. I think that's sort of goofy. Tampa Bay, and here's the crazy thing, Ryan, and I think you'll agree. Tampa Bay's actually been pretty successful as far as playoff runs and the World Series, and yet they just can't get people to come to that ballpark. And so I think getting half less games, cutting the games in half, what is that going to do? If you want to go to Montreal and you want to bring baseball back to Montreal, give them the full season. I just think it's silly. I think it's unfair to the players too. They got to travel. I mean, it's not like it's close, so the travel's more. I think it gives an unfair competitive advantage to the visiting team as well. And so if you're going to move to Montreal, if it is the Rays, like you said, that become the Montreal expert, then just do it full board. It's half. I know the Bills did that in football in Toronto with a couple games. Football is a little different. It's a now 17, but at the time, 16-game season. They played a couple games in Toronto. Much of that was to sort of get Buffalo on board with maybe building a new stadium. Or if you don't, we can always go to Toronto and play all our home games there, kind of a leverage move, if you will. But if you're going to move, if you're going to bring baseball back to Montreal, just do it 100%. To kind of half there and half in Tampa Bay, where they've already proven with a winning team, and I don't know, don't ask me why, they just don't seem to support that franchise. And so I think Montreal's been without baseball long enough. I watched a documentary last year about it, and seems like that there's a lot of people would love to see it return. And so if you're going to do it, I think, you go all the way, or, this splitting that up like that, I just think that's a bad formula. I think it hurts both cities, because it leaves Montreal, hey, we want the whole shebang, not why it's almost like a tease. And I hate to say this, people in Tampa Bay may not like it, that the ones that do support the team, but they've sort of had their chance to, support that team. And even when they're winning, that the stadium is more than half empty. So I don't know if you can't fill a stadium more than that when you're winning. I don't know if it'll ever happen. So I hate to take baseball away from a city. I know they do have, diehard fans there too, the ones that go, but you got to go where a stadium's full. I think they'd get that in Montreal. And but the 50-50 deal, I don't know about you, but I just think that's sort of silly, and
doesn't make anyone
for even. No, it won't, and I don't even think the players themselves will like that.
No.
You where what's your home? Your games are here. Most players will tell you that the ones that are entrenched on the team that don't have to worry about getting sent down and that sort of thing. They usually live, they have a house where they play. Now, not that they can't necessarily afford it, but now you got to have two houses. It's just confusing. And then with being in a different country as well, it's not like it's two American cities or two Canadian cities. It's one in each country. If you're gonna bring the Expos back, bring them back 100%, not this 50%. Stuff. So there's my soapbox on that. And I enjoyed going to the stadium and watching the Expos and whoever the visiting team was when I went. And I love to see Montreal get another team back. I think they deserve it. The way it kind of ended when they lost the team wasn't cool either. So I think they'll support it. I think they've shown that in the past, and I think I'm not Rob Manfred, but I do think it's time. So going to step aside for a quick break, but right after that we'll be back with more with Ryan.
Hey everybody, have you heard about Collectible? It's the one-stop shop where any collector can buy and trade affordable shares in some of the most rare and valuable sports cards and memorabilia in the world, starting from just $5. From 1952 Mickey Mantle PSA 10s in Wilt Chamberlain's iconic rookie uniform to one-of-one Patrick Mahomes RPAs, rare LeBron James logo mans, and everything in between, Collectible is creating never-before-seen access and opportunities for all. Let's grow the hobby we love together. Please note this is not a recommendation or solicitation to buy any security. All investment decisions should be undertaken after doing your own research.
Sports Card Nation returns with Ryan Cracknell. So, crazy, you've been doing this a long time. You grew up like me with kind of knowing, Topps' history and tradition in the landscape of sports cards, more specifically baseball. Kind of your thoughts. Where things have changed so much in the last, 6 months. But when you heard the news that, Fanatics had, the first news to break was they had won the baseball licensing from the Players Union and Major League Baseball. Then in the next couple days and week, it came out that wasn't stopping there, that basketball and football were following suit. So just kind of someone like myself that's been doing this a while, kind of what were your initial kind of gut reaction to that news?
The licensing thing shocked the heck out of me. I wasn't anticipating it. How it went down shocked me. Who was the instigator behind it didn't really surprise me at all. I've kind of been thinking for a while that something was going to change, and if there was going to be any new entity coming in that already existed, it was probably going to be Fanatics, because they've, they're this locomotive that has built up a lot of momentum real fast, and it just makes sense from the bit. I don't pretend to be a big business, like inner working things. I don't get how that works too much, but there's enough to see when you look, if you just look a little bit closely and see things that's going on. So the fact that Fanatics came in and decided they're going to make cards, got some licenses, not shocking. The full blitzkrieg of we're taking this, and this all at once, 2 weeks or 1 week before Topps was to vote on going public, that was a shocker.
Yeah.
that was the big surprise to me. But again, from a business side, it makes sense. Like as soon as it came out, it's like you kind of would look down the road and go, okay, well, that's the play to where we're at in the last couple of weeks, where now they've acquired Topps. It made sense. So here we are, whole new ballgame.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head with, I mean, that was the biggest thing to me, is how this came out of nowhere. A lot of, with social media, yourself, stuff leaks out ahead of time. Like how, Topps at least is claiming, and I actually believe them, that they had no idea that Major League Baseball or the Players Union were actually negotiating the contract with someone else other than them. They were sort of blindsided. The fact that in today's social media and information age, that not one person, and I don't know how many people were involved in the negotiations, whether it was just 2 or 3 or 10, I don't know that number. But even at 2 or 3, or if it's more, even more shocking, that how that did not leak out at some point, how the word did not get back to top. How did someone, maybe even on the Major League Baseball side, just kind of call someone and say, hey, this is going on, you guys should know about it. That was what, obviously anytime someone's done something for 70 years and then you find out they're no longer going to be doing that soon, that's shocking. But then when you realize how it was done without any kind of leakage of information, and them getting, it was almost like Ocean's, I said on this show, it was like Ocean's 13, like just everyone, had a role and pulled it off. And, Michael Eisner, who runs Topps, I mean, this is a page out of his book. He usually winning these type of deals. And so, I hate to say it, for, I'm sure it wasn't a good day in that office when that news broke. And, he was on the rare other side of what he's used to doing himself. And, I remember when that, in the end, I mean, like you said, it was just before they were about to go public. I actually owned shares in that SPAC from Mudrick Capital, and that put the kibosh on that. I had to sell at a little bit of a loss. Wasn't terrible, but definitely not was what I was planning or expecting to do. Truth be told, and I'm sure Eisner's a smart guy, so he's going to make the best deal, no matter in the end that what he has to work with, but not how he planned to do it. And now we know that Fanatics has acquired Topps, and I hear a lot of people in so, not a lot, but there's some people in social media, sort of, whether it's they just don't know how business works, like they're almost reporting it as almost like a merger or a partnership. That's not what it is. Fanatics has purchased Tops. I know Michael Rubin has said his intent is to keep all 350 employees if they'd like to stay under the Fanatics, company. We'll see, how many do and how many don't. I mean, I think for Fanatics, it was the wise thing to do on many fronts. Obviously, Tops has that printing deal where they have the cards printed. That would have been uncharted territory for Fanatics. And Tops, I mean, those 5 letters carry a lot of weight still in the hobby, and 70 years of tradition on the baseball side. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. I'm born in the same city, basically Tops was. And so when that news broke, the first, when they lost, I was sad in that respect. That's something I sort of grew up on. And just, I'm not, nothing necessarily has to be forever, but you kind of always think Tops is going to do baseball. And then when you find out that's not necessarily going to be the case, it really hits home. And so the sentimental old guy in me was sort of sad when I, thought of a day that there may not be a baseball product with TOPPS on it one year or for numerous years even, or forever potentially. So I was hoping, a selfish part of me was hoping Fanatics would acquire Tops. That's what's happened. Your thoughts on the acquisition? You think that was smart on Fanatics' part? And what do you see? I mean, it's all speculation. I mean, no one knows. But if you have to play armchair Fanatics / Tops, how do you think this plays out?
Number one, I think it was the right move, business wise, everything wise. You get that personnel to start with. Even if you go in a different direction, you have people who know the industry as a starting point. You can add, subtract, do whatever you want with that. But there is a lot of experience there. The big piece, though, is the history. You have all those years of not only making cards, but the IP that goes with that. So all those designs, even when you get down to the nitty gritty of some of their things like Garbage Pail Kids, Mars Attacks, Wacky Packages, there's licensing in there. And that's a good thing from a business perspective. So from that side, made perfect sense. With Fanatics, they're a technology-driven company, from what I understand. I don't see as much of them up here in Canada as I think they are in the States. We can get stuff, but it's expensive to ship things and everything else. So they haven't taken over to the same extent, I don't think, up here yet. But because they're technology-driven, I think they're going to bring some of those pieces that maybe Tops was missing, or accelerate what they were working on. NFTs, not my thing, but they are for a lot of people. So their candy company, they'll be able to find some nice synergies in there with the licensing, everything else. I think one of my biggest hopes is that by having the fresh company looking at it, and with the close contact that they have with the leagues, and now with the leagues and the player unions being part of this Fanatics Trading Cards company, having equity in it, that we'll see some improvements in things like autographs. Perfect world, they would all go back to on card and no sticker. I'm a no sticker guy if I can avoid them. I understand why they exist and all that, but a card that's actually signed, to me, is cooler than a card that's on a sticker. So 1 versus a 1B or even a 2. Memorabilia, I hope we get more game use stuff across the board this way, because Fanatics has access. They're make deals, figure it out. I'm sure it's more complicated, but it can't be that hard. Even something like today is going to be Fanatics Day, and all the jerseys worn in these games here will go towards memorabilia next year. So boom, you have your assets. you can market the heck out of that too, and like Players Weekend or something. Though those are kind of the two premium whatever hits things, even though those aren't necessarily what I like my autographs. But if memorabilia all became game used again, I'd be way more interested. To me, the coolest cards are the ones that tell a story. And if there's a swatch in there that I can trace back to something and know what happened on that date, that's just a cool card to me no matter what. So
we need to take a quick commercial break to hear from one of our great sponsors, but we'll be right back after that.
Iron Sports Cards is your #1 source for all your PSA and other grading submissions. Their elite status improves turnaround times. Heck, they even provide the card savers. Their chat rooms provide updates on all your submissions. They also offer wax options and single cards to cover all the bases. Check them out on Facebook at Iron Sports Cards Group or on the web at ironsportscards.com, or even give them a call at 1-877-IRON-PSA. Rob's got you covered.
We've returned with more with Ryan Cracknell.
But I think the other piece is that we have that tradition still going. Now we're all of a sudden, what could have been the last year of Topps baseball is, I don't want to say just another year, but it is just another year because we're going to have that continuity. And then we can look further down the road, and we'll have Topps football back and Topps Chrome basketball back. And,
crazy.
And it might, we don't even know what the landscape's going to look like in 3-5 years. Maybe they're not done yet. Maybe there are more companies to be acquired. But at the end of the day, too, I don't want Fanatics just to do everything that Topps was already doing. I want to see some. I want to see Fanatics. I want to see some sets that aren't Topps driven. What that looks like or feels like, I don't know. But if it's a Fanatics company, let's get some Fanatics sets or branding or something out there as well. And I think the final piece too goes with the technology is that we're going to see a more personalized hobby, where we can get cards that we want made ourselves, even more so than Topps now, where we're just ordering for a certain amount of time. Things connected to going to the ballpark and having cards connected with that, regional things. There's just all sorts of things with what Fanatics is already doing with their merchandise and their clothing, that how do we apply some of those same ideas to cards? I don't know. Let's see. Let's have this conversation again in 5 years and either compliment it or pick it apart or whatever, and go from there.
Yeah, all great points. I agree. And, as much as I kind of stick up for Topps, Ryan, but let's, you got to be honest. They've dropped the ball along the way. I think that's what really opened the door for those sort of quiet negotiations that where we are now. But you hear people complain. It's not just Topps. In Topps' defense, people complain about Panini. People even complain about Upper Deck, maybe a little bit less, if you will. But let's see like you said, let's see what Fanatics can do to improve the product. Obviously, anytime you take over something, you want to make it better than it already was, even if it was great or very good. You want to make it better. You don't want to take something over and fall short or be worse, or have someone say, man, this was so much of a better product before Fanatics got the license. That's the doomsday scenario for them, especially they're rumored to have it for 20 years. So they don't want to get that sort of negative reputation. So, I too agree that it'll be nice to see maybe some of their own innovation in their own brand new products, that they're put their own spin and touch on things. And if you're going to pay that much for a license, I'm probably a pretty safe bet that they're going to do that. I'm sure they had things in mind even before they acquired Topps. Like I told people on this very show, for a sale to be made, you have to have two parties agree, right? I might want to, Fanatics might want to buy Topps, but if Topps don't want to sell themselves, or they can't agree on a price, then the deal doesn't happen. So I don't think Fanatics knew for sure that they were going to acquire Topps. I'm sure they had, blueprints to do that, but until the deal gets agreed upon. So I'm sure they had stuff already, on the drawing table that, we don't know for sure we're going to get Topps, but so we have to, kind of plan A and plan B, and then plan C where's where we get them, and we kind of use both, right? Stuff we want to do on our own, and that Topps IP, as you mentioned. So it's definitely going to be interesting. What the deal does is, it's like a new toy at Christmas. You want to, come down in the morning, run to the tree, rip open the wrapping paper and see what it is, and put it together if it needs assembly, or play with it. And that's the thing, Fanatics won that licensing, but they weren't before the acquisition of Topps. They were going to have to wait to 2026 before they really got to play with the, I use analogy, play with the toy. I know that's sort of a real baseline way to say it, but now with acquiring Topps, they can do it as soon as they can get on that, crank that stuff out there. I've said it's probably before we really see Fanatics' touch on. I think it's going to be 2023. A lot of the 2022 stuff's probably already sort of in the works and design wise and stuff. So I think it'll be 2023 before we see sort of what Fanatics is going to bring to the table. But they'll tell you it beats it. They rather do it in 2023 than have to wait till 2026. So, now the big talk is whether they, acquire Panini. I mean, just playing armchair Fanatics. I mean, number one, I guess, do you think they want to purchase Panini, and do you expect it?
Honest, do they need it? Is kind of the point that I keep going back to. It's like, if they got Panini first, then you could make the argument that they would also need Topps for the IP.
Yep.
Panini has some really good IP, and they have a lot of brands because they have all those 90, most of the 90s ones. Upper Deck has, the Fleer and the Skybox, but all those other ones, Panini has them, which could be good, but how many products are you going to make? Where do you want to differentiate them? Soccer, where does the international soccer piece fit into it as well? If that would even be part of a deal, because maybe sale is just Panini America. So who knows? I have no idea. I could see it going either way myself. When Fanatics first jumped into the scene, my gut was telling me two companies. I don't think Upper Deck's going to happen now once they sign their new hockey deal.
Yeah.
I think Upper Deck's happy in their sandbox that they're doing, and with hockey and Michael Jordan and LeBron, and they're really hitting that nostalgia piece with the Metal Universe right now. And I think we could see them. I'm curious to see what they're going to be doing with the NFT stuff, even if that's not my wheelhouse. They've got they have a history of doing interesting things, so we'll see. But since Fanatics got Topps first, I honestly could see it going. I'm not going to be shocked. Let's put it that way. The shock is out of the system. It could happen. It might not. I don't know. Sorry, I'm sitting on the fence. I'm Canadian. That's.
Well, I'll make you feel better, Ryan, because you took the words right out of my mouth. I feel almost exactly the same way. If they would have bought Panini first or acquired Panini first, I still think Topps would have been a big chess piece to still knock over. But now that it's the other way, when you think of Panini, and I'm not just trying to say these are the only three brands they do, but the first three big brands you think of are Prism, Flawless, and National Treasures. That's their, three, gems or jewels in the collection. But if you're Fanatics now, you could say, well, we're now acquiring Topps, and we don't buy Panini when their license runs out. Topps Chrome becomes the Prism. And we don't need a Prism. And we've sort of eliminated the competition because they can't make it. And so Topps Chrome sort of is not battling really anybody. It's its own enterprise in itself. And we can make our own. We can't call it Flawless or National Treasures, but we can make that high end, that premium, expensive, 7-card, really nice looking product, and just call it something else. Everyone will kind of put 2 and 2 together, know what this is modeled after, but whatever they want to name it or brand it. And again, there's a human element to this. I know you feel the same way. I don't want necessarily, as someone who lost their employment earlier this year, doing good now, but I don't want to, see people necessarily, lose their employment. But, it is a business, and business decisions have to be made. I think you touched on it, and I kind of agree. Like, it might be better business-wise for Fanatics kind of to sort of let it run its course and then replace those products that can't be produced anymore with their own spin on it. And, in a sense, Topps Chrome sort of becomes the de facto Prism without having to compete against it. And,
which it was originally, that was the first Prism anyways. So
we need to step aside for another quick break, but we'll be right back after that.
Pastime Marketplace has a line of graded card cases that are waterproof, airtight, dust-tight, and hardened to protect and organize your valuable collection. Each of our cases come with pre-cut and pre-formed foam, so you don't have to cut and tear the foam when you get your case. The pre-cut foam inserts are sized to hold PSA, Beckett, SGC, and CGS slabs. Store it all safely and securely with a case from Pastime Marketplace. Check them out at www.pastimemarketplace.com.
Happy to be back with Ryan Cracknell.
Actually, I was thinking the other day, just probably in the shower, because that's where just random thoughts pop into my head. And the big challenge for Topps, I would say, is historically being those super premium products. They make them, they're nice, but they don't have that prestige level of National Treasures. They just don't. Transcendent's a little different, but that's because Transcendent has that party connected to it. And it's a different, distinct brand. So kind of where my train of thought as I was washing my hair was, Fanatics is the memorabilia. That's where they can really make their point, is introducing some sort of new Fanatics level, super premium luxury. Either way, I'm just going to be looking at pictures of it myself, because that's not my...
Yeah, no, I hear you.
I love looking at it, but and all the power to those that get it. But I'm happy just looking and window shopping with that stuff. So that was kind of where my thinking was, is that might be the opportunity for the new Fanatics brands. Because in football, Topps they introduced 5-star and it did okay, but National Treasures has had all that time since to carve out that much more brand leverage and affinity and stuff like that. And basketball, I can't even really think of a real high-end Topps basketball from when they did it, to be honest. It was Chrome.
Just the Chrome. It was the Chrome.
And they tried different things. I remember the cards that had money in it. What was it? Luxury box. I don't even remember that. Might have been luxury box. But there was, I don't know if you remember, they had $100 bills inside of cards. That was weird. But I don't think we'll see that again.
We've seen the silver bars and some of the Panini product, and it's going to be interesting to say the least. And you mentioned Transcendent, which is a great product, but comes at a very high price. I believe it's the most expensive product. Like you, that's nothing. The closest I'd ever get to owning that is probably buying into a break and just hoping, it's like a lottery ticket. Hope you hit something, the bigger piece of the fun to watch, like breaks on YouTube and stuff, and seeing what comes out of it from. Yeah, and even like a George Washington autograph and just some crazy Abraham Lincoln and just some crazy, even non-sports related, like one-on-one stuff. It's just it's like a history lesson in watching that boxer case get open. But Fanatics can, I think, do like you said with the jerseys, with the apparel they've already do with their relationship now with the players union, which they've already had a good one. That's one of the reasons the deal went down in the first place, is they can probably put their own spin on that. They'd obviously have to call it something else other than Flawless or National Treasures, but I think we all know in the hobby that have been around long enough will know what that product is sort of modeled or based after, and they might be able to do it better, and I'm sure they'll believe they can do that better. So it's like you said, it's going to be an interesting next 2 to 5 years, Ryan. I think the next 2 to 5 years, really how it goes is going to kind of shape where the next 10, 15, 20 years are going to go with the landscape changing, with Fanatics now coming in. It's going to be fun and interesting to watch. And, I feel a little bit better now with Top sort of being acquired, kind of take a deep breath and know, for the sentimental person in me from New York, that that product's going to, that name's going to live on in some capacity. I don't know if only shoe to drop it, whether it's Panini or maybe even a smaller boutique company they purchase. A Leaf maybe on the table, Onyx, Wild Card came back this year. Maybe they want to, acquire that if they deem they can kind of take it and bring it to the next level. Those folks in that, they have a lot of smart people there that have an idea what they kind of want to do. So it's going to be fun to watch. And interesting to say the least. We'll be talking about this, for a while. So I know some people are like, enough already. Before the acquisition of Topps, people were like, hey, we're like 3 years, 4 years away from seeing anything of reality. And now that's just been pushed up now. And so for those people that were like fanatics out, I got bad news for them. It's just, the acquisition is just going to keep that talk going, and even in a different direction. So it's going to be fun to watch, and or at least interesting, if not fun. So I appreciate you coming on, Ryan. I know you have your finger on the pulse just from what you do. Was definitely interested in hearing some of the things you were doing personally and your take on this, all of the transactions and the business side of the hobby, which is, it is important. It's anyone that, people say, I hate to talk about that, but it's the driving force really behind it. Whether you do it for that reason or not, it's just a huge factor that we have to talk about it. So I appreciate you sharing some time and coming on, and hopefully we can have you back again somewhere down the line. And I'm sure there'll be some new stuff to on the table to discuss. I always give the guest the final word. Give out any of your, where people can find you, websites, all that good stuff to see what you're doing.
Sure. The stuff that I write every day, Beckett.com/news. That'll take you right to the news page. If you just kind of want to see what's going on in the hobby, see what new sets are coming, what are out, checklists, all that stuff. Beckett.com/news. You can find me. I'm active really only on Twitter, on social media, and it's at Trader Cracks. So Ryan, the origin of that is I like to trade baseball cards, so Trader, and my last name's Cracknell, so Cracks. Trader Cracks, Nothing to do with drugs, nothing to do with stocks or Forex or something weird that I get weird emails for sometimes. Trader Cracks.
All right, there you go, Ryan. Thanks again, man. I appreciate you coming on. I know you're busy, and sharing some of that insight with us.
Thank you.
What doesn't one of one card shop do? From box, case, and personal breaks, there's always fire being pulled. They offer bulk grading subs, and their large store located in Strongsville, Ohio, offers an incredible selection of sports cards, non-sports, and authentic autographed memorabilia. Steve and family will treat you right. Check them out on Instagram at One of One Card Shop or on the web at oneofonecardshop.com.
All right, that's a wrap for 163. I'm going to try to keep this closing short and sweet. Want to thank you out there who download, listen to the show in many, many different places. You tell me that. Don't tell me everywhere. Some of those probably should be kept private. But no matter where you listen to us, we appreciate that. We're not here without you. Want to thank my guest, Ryan Cracknell. A great guy, great for the hobby. Glad he came on and shared some of his insight with me and you out there. And really appreciate that. We'll have him back on as long as he'll come back. And we're fortunate to have him in the hobby. Knows what he's doing. The line I like to use, finger on the pulse, all that good stuff. Advocate, ambassador for the hobby. And so the hobby's better with Ryan in it. And hopefully we'll have him back on somewhere down the line as well. So like I said in the intro, folks, don't let some of the bad, negative stories of the hobby, which are always unfortunately going to be there at different times or another, don't let those ruin the hobby. Enjoy the hobby. It's still enjoyable. Do it the way you'd like to do it, as long as it's legal and above board. Kind of, a little tunnel vision, little blinders on. I'm not saying don't pay attention, but don't pay too much attention where it ruins your experience. Let's just put it that way. And, things will get better. I think a lot of the bad stuff we're hearing is coming from the boom, 2 years of boom. And as we kind of reset, to use that term, some of it will go away, not all of it. Some of it will. And, we can only control our own actions, really, at the end of the day. So with that being said, take care, be well, and we'll see you Monday on Hobby Quick Hits, and we'll see you next Friday with another episode of Sports Card Nation. Say goodnight, Kane.